Global economic collapse is underway, and today we focus our attention on the United States. And we will discuss 8 reasons why the US empire is falling. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. We have much to cover today. I will touch on these reasons, and you can read further into them yourselves. Let's move on to the most important, in my opinion. China's yuan joins the top 5 most used global currencies. This is out of the Times of India. And what they said was China's yuan has become one of the most widely used currencies in global payments, an international financial transactions agency announced on Wednesday. They actually surpassed the Canadian and Australian dollars in popularity. Can you believe this? What a world we live in, that there is so much change occurring, and we have a currency war taking place right now today before our very eyes, as we see the Chinese able to gain a foothold over the other currencies of the world, over the other nations. We see their GDP surpassing many of these other nations, and things are definitely changing. So the currency wars that are directly affecting the US and their economy as a whole, perhaps not right now, but we're looking at it as a whole, that are definitely being affected negatively. Let's move on to the next one. We have this out of Syracuse. 1 out of every 5 children in the United States relies on food stamps for some meals, according to the new data released by the Census Bureau. Poverty is a major problem in the United States, and it is barely being covered, barely being talked about. Though the economy is recovering, right there, propaganda, that number is still higher than it was before the start of the recession in 2007. In 2014, 16 million children received food stamps. So under Obama, we have an increase in poverty, particularly with children. This is very, very sad to talk about, but I have to bring out the truth to you so that we can spread it out there. And essentially what we're looking at is increased levels of poverty, all coming from the policies that the government puts in place. When you have quantitative easing, when you have TARP-type bailouts, none of the money, absolutely 0% of it, goes to the people who need it most. I'll get into more of this type of information in a moment. Right here we have the Washington Times. 50 years after President Johnson started a $20 trillion taxpayer-funded war on poverty, the overall percentage of impoverished people in the United States has declined only slightly, and the poor have lost ground under President Obama. So even though he proposes that everything has gotten better, we actually see poverty increasing. Now look at the cost itself. We're talking about $20 trillion. I am not a mathematician. I am not any sort of soothsayer. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have any sort of magic potion or any of these things. But with $20 trillion, I'm pretty sure I could solve the poverty problem in a country of over 300 million people. It doesn't take $20 trillion to resolve this problem. That's because it's all wasted, it's all squandered, and barely a fraction of the money goes to the people in need. And this is very sad. We're number 12. The United States does not rank among the top 10 countries in the world for economic freedom, according to the Heritage Foundation's 2015 index. Instead, the US ranked only 12 after Hong Kong, Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, and so on. So look at all of these other countries that are way ahead in economic freedom than the United States. This is a very, very big problem. You could see where I'm going with that. I'll move on quickly here. Washington, D.C. This is an article about Washington, D.C. out of the Washington Post, but it goes for the whole country as a whole, and in fact beyond the borders of the country. Wage disparities in the district are at their widest point in 35 years, and the city's flourishing economy has masked a grim reality for residents who lack a college degree. Many are worse off now than they were before during the recession, according to the new report. How many statistics do I need to show you, not just in this video, but in previous ones, where I say that we are headed back to the levels of the recession and even before that, and other indicators show multi-decade low levels, consistently showing you the statistics of this, yet we still have people on here and out there talking about how these facts, in fact, are not true. It's pretty hilarious to read this all and to see it all, but in fact, people will deny the facts. How can this happen? It's crazy to read. I'm going to move on right here. From here to there, this is out of the Wall Street Journal. Share of global manufacturing exports, and the lighter color is 2000 and the darker color is 2013. We see how China vastly expanding, the EU having minor expansion, but the US and Japan declining significantly over the past decade and a half here, and this is a trend that is continuing to go on. And this information is out of the World Trade Organization as well as the Wall Street Journal, but just wanted to show you this, how global exports are shifting right now. We don't have what we used to have. There is no more of that American manufacturing that's taken place. More factories are closing down right now and very few are opening up. I'll talk about briefly in my book here. The cost of living is increasing constantly and putting many people underwater. Economist Richard Duncan explains that the expansion of credit tends to cause the price of assets, such as stocks and property, to increase, thereby boosting the net worth of the public. Rising asset prices give the owners of the assets more wealth. Then I say, if you don't own these assets, you can't take advantage of their ability to preserve wealth. So sure, you don't want to own cash when you're having a hyperinflation or vast inflation in a scenario, because of course it's going to wipe you out. But the average individual in the US oftentimes can't afford to buy things like precious metals or like real estate or parking spots or storage lockers or land or farmland or any of the real assets that I've discussed here many times. What we have is a situation where the people are running into more poverty. I'm covering the stats right now, and we could see that, so they can't take advantage of this. But guess who can? It is the mega wealthy. They continue to buy up all of these assets and take advantage of the scenario of quantitative easing because they are riding just well right now. They are doing just fine. This here is out of Forbes. Many Americans renounce their citizenship. So we're going to go into this just very briefly. I just wanted to cover the fact that yes, while we do have a lot of immigration in the United States taking place, there are also many people who are simply foregoing their citizenship. The growing trend is a sad one, with record numbers of Americans renouncing their U.S. citizenship. It actually hits a record number renouncing their citizenship here, and this is a continuing trend. It's getting worse. And what does this say about the United States? Yes, there are many reasons why this is happening, but if the people had such a strong faith in their nation, they would not be moving out of the country, number one, and they would not be renouncing their citizenship. They would want to keep that. But of course, they see the direction it's heading. They see the trajectory, and they're not liking it. So they just give up the citizenship and don't look back. Contractors on the battlefield, outsourcing of the military services. This information here is telling because, well, let me just read this for a moment here. A sharp increase in the scale of outsourcing of military services to third parties. We have wars that are taking place all around the world every single day. The military has expanded, the US military that is, has expanded to approximately 150 countries around the world. It has over 75% of the countries in the world are have the U.S. military on it. We had a $1 billion embassy built in Iraq. They have, in fact, said that they pulled out all of their troops out of Iraq not too long ago. They said it was mission accomplished. They said they did everything that they needed to do in Iraq. But what happened was they actually left their military contractors there. In fact, there were tens of thousands remaining in Iraq during that time where they claimed that they didn't have any people in there. And that's what just goes to show you the lies that they tell us. Now, the reason I mention this is that one of the major reasons why the Roman Empire fell is because they spread too thin. They were using contractors, and this is obviously going to put a big burden on them because they tried to expand faster than was reasonable. And just another side note here, one of the other reasons why the Roman Empire fell is that I've researched and I was informed that actually they subsidized, they outsourced their production of grains to Africa. And then when Africa was taken over, suddenly they had a food shortage. So this is another reason, and I unfortunately cannot remember the book that I have read that from, but it is information for you to look up further should you choose to. Now, food shortages are something that I want to discuss here, and I'll just get into this in a moment. 2 articles that I just wanted to connect together. Brazil's biggest city may cut water services to 2 days a week. When you have a very, very serious issue like people not being able to get access to their water, you will have a crisis on your hands that will expand at a rapid rate. I'm not going to get into this actual article here. It is good information, but I just wanted to also connect it in with this. Have we reached peak food? Shortages loom as global production rates slow. This is out of the Independent. Now, I'm not going to talk about the peak food itself, but I just wanted to note right here that we have issues of food shortages and water shortages that could take place. Whether this is happening or not where you live, I just want to note the fact that this very well could happen, a natural disaster, or whether we have some sort of critter like a rootworm virus or any of these other things that could affect the production, the supply. We could have a contamination of the water supply that could leave you without drinking water. So the reason I mention this, then tagging it along with the collapse that is occurring in the United States, is that you need to be prepared. So if we're expecting a collapse to occur, or I should say continue to occur in the United States and directly affecting you as an individual, you need to make preparations now and today. And the 2 most important things for you is your food supply and your water supply. This can be easily mitigated, taken care of by doing what you need to do. Nobody really, or many people I should say, find themselves too busy to grow their own food. But this is a very simple method for you to have that stability. Now, if you don't want to grow a garden, you could at least grow sprouts in your house for pennies. For a massive bundle of sprouts, you can grow them in your own house. It's very easy, and you can get consistent food in a few days. There are also just basic simple things like having extra canned food. Keep a lot of canned food in the house, things that you eat regularly, just have a large amount of it. You can have large bags of rice, other things that store on the shelf for long periods of time. If you would normally keep 1 bag, if you have the storage, if you have the space, keep 5 or 10 or 20 bags of that particular item. And that way you can have a barrier, sort of a buffer, should there be an issue with the food supply. Now, what about the water supply? Number 1, you need a filter. I personally have a Berkey filter, had it for years, use it all the time. It's the only water I would drink from. And that's a way to clean out all the worst types of water, and it will filter that for you. You can take rainwater and swamp water, and it will clean it right up. That's very important, very cheap in fact, to get that. You can get the life straw, which is another thing that you can have as more of an emergency thing. And also, you should look into getting your own well. A well is an important thing to have if it makes sense in your area. There are not all good water sources underground. You need to find that. You can also find a spring. The website for that is findthespring.com, an excellent resource where you can find a spring in your local area to find good quality drinking water that is much better than the fluoridated water supply with all that chlorine and all that garbage that comes out. If you could find the spring local to you, you will do so much for your health with structured water as nature intended it. And so that's all I'm going to get to for this video. Essentially, be prepared, do what you have to do. If you want more information on preparation, you can contact me directly. One of the places to get me is at david@themoneygps.com, but there tends to be about a week delay on that just because I reply to the people on the insiders first. They are my first priority. And of course, if you want one-on-one time, you can do what the others do. You just email me, let me know you want a consultation, and we can talk one-on-one. If you found this video informative, I would appreciate it for a thumbs up. And of course, don't forget to become an insider. The Insiders is where I give out all my best intel for free, and that is available at themoneygps.com. Scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.